Yama yama, how is everyone? Good. Have you had a pretty good day? I bet you've been diving deep today, eh? I know. So with that said, I just want you to shake out and get some energy out. I need everyone to say Wallenbar. Can everyone say Wallenbar? Now, I need you to scream it because we're going to go diving seriously deep this next session. So I need you to get pumped up for me. So on 3, I just want you to scream it and we're going to get into it. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh, my goodness. I honestly thought you were going to give me a bit more than that. 1, 2, 3. Beautiful. My name's Mitch Tambo. I'm a proud Gamilaroi man, and it's an absolute honour to be here on this beautiful country, and I'd like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and to all the surrounding clan groups, to all the ancestors that have been here since the time of creation, whose law transcends into the Wadumbull, the Milky Way, flows through the Bugeye, the waterways, and Yuligis dances across this beautiful country and talks to us mainly in the spirit. I want to acknowledge the first people here as the first mothers, fathers, doctors, law keepers, agriculturalists, and much, much more. So without further ado, we're going to get into this today. A bit about me, I'm a singer-songwriter. I think some of my Sony fam are here today, and I'm also the Cultural and Diversity Ambassador, hey Beck, here at Support Act, which is the first of its kind. So I'm really blessed to be here in the initial phases of what we're doing here with Yarning Strong Sessions with Support Act as well. So without any further ado, I want you to give everyone a round of applause like we're at the footy as I intro them into here. Emily Wurramara, an incredible singer-songwriter, doing incredible things. Come down, my sister. Take a seat. Thanks for coming on board. We've got like Australia's black answer to Eminem. Mr. Dobby, get out here. He's got a new single out right now. Absolutely thumping. Here he is, my brother. Bars of Steel. Take a seat. Hey? What an intro, he reckons. And this has got to be the biggest clap because this is for our backbone of our Yarning Strong sessions, and that is Cerisa Grant. Give her a big clap. Woo! I'll sit down now. All right, cool. So today we just really want to have an open and honest conversation. We love to yarn, but this conversation is for you, Mob, too, and it is a small room, so I feel like throughout the course, if you want to ask a question and you've got a big voice, please put your hand up because we want you to take as much away from this as possible. Because for us, we want to share today to impart to you so you feel more empowered going back into your industry and workplace when dealing with our mob. And now more than ever, we need more resources. We need more people that are empowered and inspired to work with us in terms of our artistry, but also looking after us and our mental health and ensuring that we're feeling safe and we feel empowered and we feel open to be able to talk through the issues that we may face in our personal life, but also our professional life as well. So, with that said, let's do this. In this discussion, we'll be talking about navigating our professional careers as First Nations people within the music industry. The aim of this conversation is to highlight key moments and situations where major labels, agents, managers, venues, and festivals can go wrong with diversity and inclusion of First Nations musicians, music workers, and music professionals. Through this conversation, we are looking to discuss how the effects of First Nations people and their mental health, how it affects us, basically. Because, what you'll find today is a certain situation where you think is totally okay may really be coming from preconceived ideals that have been embedded in you since you've been conceived. And you might have an ideal or a certain perspective on us, and you might say something you think's okay, but it's the complete opposite. So we really want to open this up to you today. So without any further ado, I want to let each and every one of these deadly mob here introduce himself and just get into it, brother. Don't be ashamed, mate.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much, brother. It's so good to be here. Hello, everyone. How you doing? You good? Yeah? So my name's Ryan Clapham. Proud Mudori and Filipino hip-hop artist, drummer, rapper, drapper. Filipino on my mother's side. I'm from Tacloban, came to Australia in 1985. And on my father's side, Mudori in Wurramara, northwest New South Wales. So that's from Dobby about a further 5 hours northwest. And my great-grandfather was born under the birthing tree 1 hour north in a place called Wurramara, Mudori country. So that's me.
Deadly. I love that, brother. Thank you. Sister, talk to us.
Hello, everyone. My name is Elle. Firstly, thank you, Brother Mitch. That's so beautiful. My name is Emily Wurramara, and I am a Wanantalioka woman. My father also Filipino, from Groote Island and Biggerton Island in the Gulf of Carpentaria, an NT. And yeah, that's me.
Perfect. Carissa.
Hi everyone, thank you all for coming. Thank you for that intro, Mitch. I felt like I was coming out into like a boxing ring. You know,
I
when
needed
they-
to build the energy, you know?
and coming out. But my name is Cerisa. I'm Support Acts First Nations Community Engagement and Social Worker. And I'm a proud Jawoyn, Gurindji and Warlpiri woman from Katherine, Northern Territory, born and raised on my traditional country. So, yeah, that's me.
Beautiful. Give him a clap, come on. I'm all about the clap life. There's going to be lots of clapping today. All right, let's get into it. So, basically, I want to open this question up to all three of you, Deadly Mob, right now. And let's just go with it. How is your mental health impacted in the industry? You might want to share a story of how it's been impacted, but yeah, just go for it.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I feel the way that you opened this conversation up is exactly right about preconceived notions of what people expect from First Nations artists. So I think that's a good place to start. Pressure of being a certain way, and I know we've had this yarn a lot of times before about this sort of content that they want us to produce, or this sort of being boxed in and tokenized in certain ways is a lot of pressure, and then you have to go through this sort of feeling of, well, then I've got to fight back, and that's extra energy used, and no one really understands that that is energy that we have to use just to be who we want to be as musicians. And so non-Indigenous artists don't necessarily have to go through that. So there's a difference in the amount of energy that we have to put out just by being musicians, Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's a big one.
Yeah.
It is a really big question, and it's a big yarn because what we were saying before. We don't have like this could go for hours because there are so many layers that you have to peel back to get to the root, and that root is that for me it's that intergenerational trauma, knowing what's happened to my family. My mum was taken when she was 7 years old, and she was returned, thank God, because my grandfather fought for her to return back to country. And when I first started out in this industry, I was 14. I'm 26 now, and I was such a bubba, and I had no idea what the fuck I was getting myself into. I wish that we had this conversation when I first got in, because it is a really big thing. I remember going on stage at the one festival, and they had strictly asked me to sing language songs. And I've learnt now that hearing my language is a privilege. It's not anyone's right. It's my decision whether I want to sing those songs or talk, because it comes from ancient. It's so special and it's so sacred. And there are so many times throughout my career I've been told to just suck it up and deal with it. And I'm actually, it's not healthy. It's actually really toxic to yourself. It's toxic to the environment that you put yourself in. It's not safe for yourself to be around music while you're feeling like you can't even breathe sometimes. And I think it's important for these young ones to see us up here and to hear us having these conversations about it, because no one really talks about it.
Well said. Beautiful. Thanks, sister. Carissa.
Great question. And you guys would know more about it being musicians and working in the industry, but myself, coming into the industry and seeing how it is, seeing that mental health is not really talked about, in particular First Nations mental health is not really talked about within the industry, was hard for me to come into. And then having to explain kind of, what mental health is like for First Nations people is like, come on, we're in the 21st century. Like, shouldn't we be above this and beyond this? But it's great that we're starting to have these conversations about First Nations mental health. And amazingly, the work that I'm in, Support Act, I work with such amazing, beautiful people, and they're super supportive of me, and bringing my voice into the music scene to be able to help the music industry understand what it's like for a First Nations person to not only grow up in a westernized society, but having to have a voice in the music industry itself, and not being labelled as that, Aboriginal artist that comes in and ticks a box. So, yeah, it's tough for all First Nations people to navigate this space.
For sure. And I think, when we talk about holistic mental health and we talk about us as First Nations people, it's a really interesting layered topic, because on one hand you've got youngish artists like myself and these very young deadly artists here that are coming through with beautiful interpretations of culture. It's contemporary, but there's a thread of some beautiful ancientness that's in there as well that's really integral to our own identity. And it's all fun and it's light, and we want to be successful, and we want to play on all these beautiful diverse stages and all that kind of thing. But then on the flip side is what Sister Emily said, and that there is a really strong thread in a lot of us of intergenerational and transgenerational trauma. And yes.
Sorry, I want to ask a question.
Sure.
I'm coming out as an artist.
Yes.
At the end of the year, I'm an Aboriginal woman from the South Coast.
Mm.
And one of my biggest, and I really wanted to talk to you guys about this, is because one of my biggest issues is a lot of people, when they meet me, they don't know I'm Korean until I identify as Korean, right? And my biggest threat to me, I'm really worried about coming out as an artist and then getting pigeonholed.
Mhm.
Do you know, once people go, oh, yep, she's an Aboriginal woman, she gets pigeonholed, and then you have to then, how's that going to affect, like, how do you guys go through that? Like, and
Yeah.
Go
So,
ahead, sis.
do you want to go?
I think, sis, that is such a deadly question, and thank you for raising your hand and speaking out, because it's such a common thing for us mob to experience that, and we still experience that today. We're on festival lineups, we're either the end more or our name is like, whatever. But it can get really exhausting, and you've got to have a community. You've got to have, we make up, 3% of this population. We make fuck all in this industry. When I was growing up, I could name probably 5, maybe 6 Indigenous artists that I would listen to and my grandparents would listen to, and now we have a diverse range across all genres. And one thing I found is community. When you come into this space, when you come into this industry as mob, we're family, and we all look after each other, we all talk to each other, we all reach out to each other, and we hold space for each other, because that's so important. So don't ever be afraid to reach out to any of us mob and be like, hey sis, or like, hey bro, like this is happening, this is what's going on, because we get it, and we go through it on the daily, and it's really exhausting. It can get really exhausting, and I think that's another thing that plays into this discussion about mental health, is that sometimes people they see us on stage, but they don't hear us.
Yep.
And I don't know if does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's beautiful.
That's exactly
Yeah.
what it
And
is,
I think, going back to your question, unfortunately it's inevitable. As soon as you come out, you're going to be pigeonholed. You're going to be on the red, black and yellow stages. You might have quiet patches, but as soon as NAIDOC rolls around, get ready, my sister, because it's going to be busy. But this is why we're here to talk today. And it's to be real, because there's obviously a lot of non-Indigenous people here, and we want to have this conversation, because the thing is, for example, you've got a deadly sister like Emily here, who could go toe-to-toe with, let's just say, Missy Higgins.
Yep.
But unfortunately, where we're still at is we can't seem to see past her identity and acknowledge her skill set. And it's like, oh, no, let's save Sister Emily, let's save her we got Sorry Day. We'll save her for that. Rather than, whoa, isn't she good? Let's let her headline. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I'm not saying by any means that bookers, agents, anyone that's the intent, but unfortunately, it's like an underlying theme that has all been birthed into us. It's like going to school. You go to school, NAIDOC's around, everyone, red, black, and yellow, let's go. And then after that, it's like back to, Yeah. So I think it's inevitable, but the beautiful thing is having conversations like this for you where you can hear that and go, okay, this is what I'm going to expect. So that means that I'm going to take all those jobs because I love my people, but it means I'm going to have to work harder and make myself known and go, hey, it's cool, I want to do that, but I also want to do this festival because and we have to keep pushing for that because that's just where we're at. You know what I mean? And that's okay. We have to be honest with that. So with that said, we're going to get into tokenism. So that was a great little segue with your question there. And I think everyone's going to have their own story here about tokenism. And I know Cerisa and the Mob at Support Act are working really hard at the moment around strategic planning and creating some beautiful policy and some really solid foundations to set up some incredible stuff within Support Act and that other people can also template and follow in the future. But I guess in a nutshell, to really break it down so it's not too overheads, is red, black and yellow. Simple as that. There's this ideal, there's us as black fellas, wherever we go, the backdrop's got to be the flag. We've got to be in red, black and yellow. There's got to be X, Y, and Z that you've all seen. But, you forget that we're artists that are trying to portray our own story and our own identity in our own way. So for me, if you ever see me perform, it's pretty bright, it's out there, and it can be very hard for people to get their head around it because it's like, I don't get it. Where if you went to South America and you seen Pitbull or J-Lo, you just go, wow, that's an incredible pop act, and they sing in their language and there's not much to really understand. But here, we've got this ingrained ideal of what a black fella should look like and how he should act. So all of a sudden he steps out and he's bright and cultural. I don't know what to do with that. Where do we place that? Like, can we put a sparkly Aboriginal flag on the front of your shirt or something? Do you know? And it's a bit funny, but it's that tokenism. It's like we've been ingrained in it at school. NAIDOC week, red, black and yellow flags, Aboriginal cake. Everyone wears red, black and yellow. But there's so much more to us than that. You could wear a blue, a green, a pink, and to me that could represent the green open plains and the beautiful sunset and all the diverse colours of country, and I'm still carrying that with me. And then I want to take that on to you, my brother, to share your version, of tokenism, please.
Because everything that you're saying is like setting something off within inside me. I'm like, oh, yes, and that. But because there's these narratives that we, as this nation, are for some reason sort of clinging to, of like the tokenism that an Indigenous artist has to sing in language or rap in language or have to, wear the lap or all this stuff. And if they try and, just be an artist that sings about love or about, being mad or whatever it is, they say, oh, but, it's like we all think, oh, well, we've already got Jessica Malboy, so why would we need something like that? As if there can only be one Indigenous person that does that. It's that same idea of like, this is what was in my head at the time, Master of None. There's an episode where they talk about having 2 Indian actors instead of 1 Indian actor in the show. And then people go, why would you have 2? We've already got 1. We have this idea that there can only be one this, and then the rest is just an array of tribalistic, portrayal. And we're not like that. We're a diverse range of people. And we have our different stories to tell. And every now and then, like you're saying with NAIDOC, how often have you had something like this where they say, oh, sis, we want to get you on for NAIDOC and it's going to be really meaningful and it's going to be really special, but we need you to let us know if you're down by tomorrow, and we've got $200, and I'm getting really frustrated at you because you haven't responded yet, and you can only do between the 1st and the 8th of July.
Every year of my career, I've gotten an email like that or worse, where it's like, it's for, do it for free, like it's for your people. I'm like, fuck off.
So bringing
Disrespectful.
it back. So these are some examples. So with that said, I want you to really bare your feelings if you're up for it, and just share with me how it's affected your mental health. in a real way. Because, I mean, it can be funny, and it's like, oh, Red Black Ghetto, it's just Red Black, and you're like, whatever, like, just do the festivals. Like, whatever, man. You want to be sparkles, sparkle. Just do your thing. But it's a real, there's something in there that is a real denial of the right then to express your own identity. So and it snowballs into mental health problems. So if you don't mind, I'd love it if you could elaborate, please.
I think when stuff like this happens, and feel free to chime in at any point here, but like it's a daily trickle of this sort of mentality, and it happens in the bigger the gig, the more you get this sort of colonialist sort of behavior about how they want to portray you, or we're really being I've had gigs where they're pretty much saying, well, if you aren't happy with how we're going about this, then you can leave, and that makes me feel like really sort of, well, why am I even here in the first place? Like, what am I really doing this gig for if I feel so what do you call it, disposable. So I'm like, okay, it makes you feel really icky inside, and it makes you feel like, well, if that's how they feel about me, how do they feel about our mob in general? And it's a constant thing that you start to sort of suspect, and you get really suspicious about people. And I don't think I don't think people realize that. But Indigenous people, we look at you and we're waiting for you to say something, because we're already triggered. We're already like on edge. We come from a place of like, I mean, I don't want to speak for all of us. This is where I come from a lot of the time, where I'm like, I don't know if I trust you just yet, and I'm waiting for you. I'm waiting to understand where you're coming from before I can actually, So that's how I feel,
Oh, well, yeah, it is a heavy topic, and I am going to get emotional because I'm currently going through this at the moment.
Okay.
Throughout my career, I've tried to commit 4 times just because I was so tired and I have had enough, and it gets really exhausting. It really does, because you just want to make music. You just want to sing. You just want to feel. And sometimes when you're in these spaces, you don't even have that space to feel. You don't even have time to sit down and gather your thoughts and think about what that person said, or you just have so much expectations from you, and it gets really tiring. And I think that it's really important to yarn about how, I guess, we get there in the first place when we're surrounded. See, when I first started in my career, I was very tokenized, and I put myself in positions and in places that were not safe, that were not healthy, that I didn't feel strong as a black woman in, and I had no voice behind me to help. I had to do everything on my own and call out shit on my own. I know there's heaps of festivals and heaps of people who won't book me because I'm too loud. And if I'm too loud, then what is even the fucking point of asking me what's wrong? Like, what's the point of standing there and asking, how can we help, when you're not even listening? And I think that's where it all starts, like listening to us and actually hearing us, because we are in pain. We go through more. There is more than just music to us. We're going through sorry business, or we're going through, the mining companies that are fracking on our country, that are literally tearing our country apart. We feel that on all levels, not just on the surface. We feel that, and it's deeper, and it's so rooted in us.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that with us. And I wanted to add to what Sis is saying. When you see a First Nations musician, you're not just seeing them on the mic, you're seeing their family on the mic. You're seeing their community, their ancestors, their stories, their history and their future on the mic, because we have a lot that we're thinking about and dreaming about, and there's a lot more than just that one artist on the stage.
Yeah. So just to put that into perspective for all of you guys, so you guys were here when they did the statistics of music workers and how music workers are impacted greatly than the general population. Well, you look at the statistics of First Nations people, and they're even greatly impacted than non-Indigenous people. So I think it's like, so for a non-Indigenous person is impacted from 1 person out of 100, and then you've got Indigenous people that are impacted 1 out of 10. So our mental health rates are a lot higher, which is why Support Act has bring me on, and like Mitch said, we're starting our First Nations strategic planning, which we will be releasing soon. And we're really working on supporting our First Nations people in music, because we want to make sure that there's a safe space for them, and they have someone to call and someone to reach out to feel supported in that space. You know, Emily spoke about suicide. Our suicide rates is 149 a year compared to the veterans' suicide rate, which is 25 a year. And they have a Royal Commission, and we don't have a Royal Commission. And that's not to say that our veterans don't, you know, deserve a Royal Commission, because they definitely do with what they go through. But I'm just pointing out how impacted our First Nations people are in this industry. And we did call for a Royal Commission in 2018, and it still hasn't, 2016 actually, I think it was, and it still hasn't been heard. So having these discussions, being able to, which is why we created Yarning Strong, to be able to give voices to First Nations people, so that non-Indigenous people are able to hear us and see what we go through, and we're just not another tick the box for the industry.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, you can see firsthand here the pain, and I suppose today it's not just about sharing with you that pain, but also allowing you to walk away with a greater understanding so you can give us support. And so for one story, for myself, just, you know, say you're with a whole group of people that are non-Aboriginal, and you're there and you're having a situation and it's full on, and all of a sudden you've lost it and you're broken down, and that person like, what's wrong? And you're like, well, I'm feeling all this pain from like my grandfather's great-grandmother who was stolen, and I can just feel it and all this pain, and I just want to cry and I don't know what to do anymore. And that person's just like, are you all right? Because they don't really, like, maybe in a Western way where we don't talk too much about transgenerational trauma, intergenerational trauma, you're just like, what a great-great-grandparent, you didn't even know him. Like, what's the big, is this guy all right? But for us, it is, you know, scientifically proven, as you know, that this pain, it's transferred, and at times that pain will surface, and we too don't know how to deal with it. So what we need from each and every one of you that are here today is just to find, I guess, capacity and empathy and a passion to want to understand our story and our narrative. Not so that you have to be there and be our big counsellor, but so in situations where, you know, Sissy's going through something, that you're able to empathise, and you're able to go, okay, I understand that because they were taken, and there's this and there's that, and okay, all right, sis, do you need a cup of tea? Let's go for a talk. You know, can we reconnect you with your mother and family back up north, because you understand how important family is. You've got this deeper understanding of what's going on. Do you know what I mean? And that could be all the way to a booking talent, to whatever, because we hear a lot too with booking talents, you know, they'll book you and then you'll get, well, you're definitely going to turn up, are you? Definitely coming. You know? But rather than that, have a thing of, okay, like sometimes these fellas, if someone passes away, like I mightn't hear from them, what can we do to support that? Because we know how these mob operate, and it doesn't align often with the Western way. So rather than trying to keep forcing these mob to assimilate and getting wild and then cancelling them out, we need to come up with strategies here so we can walk together.
So
You know what I'm saying?
Mitch,
Yeah.
That's a great segue
Yeah.
into our First Nations mental health first aid training. So we are currently running First Nations mental health first aid, and this is a training that shows you how to work with First Nations people, that non-Indigenous people can apply for this training. which I think would be great for the industry as a whole. And this can help like support you in supporting our First Nations people. But our next training is, if I get this right, July the 25th, August the 29th, and September the 26th. So keep an eye out on our Facebook page and our website, and that training will become available. And we're going to open the last two up to non-Indigenous people.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's great. So I guess we've covered a lot. But yes, we got a question? Yeah, go, brother. No.
Thank you. I'm a roadie man. I went bushwalking for a few hours early this morning on my own country, which was great before coming here. I just wanted to ask a question. I'm shaking, sorry. You said, Dobby, you said there's something about seeing the present, the future, and the past all at once.
Yeah.
How much of it do you think your own, and open up to everyone here, your struggles with the music industry come from a different conception of time than to the industry? So having a different conception in your heart and your mind. And also, I appreciate that the name is Head First, but I do think it's all interconnected from the head to the toe.
There's something about that question that really, you feel, because everything harks back to, there's a lot of times where I feel like time doesn't go like that. It goes up. We're just the latest people to be on this sacred land. And everything is ancient right underneath us, And so whenever something racist happens, it hasn't went anywhere. We're still here. It's still happening here because the elephant in the room is that we haven't left, and non-Indigenous people haven't left. We're still here, and so we're learning how to coexist. And in that contention, we have these instances of trickle, colonialism, racism, discrimination, tokenism. That's all remnants of what first happened. And what I want to say actually to that question as well, because that's a beautiful question, thank you. The biggest indicator of this racial tension and this racism and discrimination is in its invisibility, what you don't see. Gadigal land, right? There was this big building called the Garden Palace where the botanical gardens are. Even people in their 60s didn't know it existed. But what happened in 1882 was that building set on fire and thousands of Gadigal objects burnt up, right? So this is ground zero for colonialism, what you don't see. So I think we need to start shifting our perspective on what Aboriginality is and where First Nations lands are, because everywhere is First Nations land. Everywhere is sovereign, sacred land. It's not the bush, it's not Northern Territory, it's here too. So, thank you.
So, yes. Yes.
I have a big voice. I kind of just want to pick your brains a bit. Because you are walking in two worlds, the Western world, the Koori Aboriginal side of the community. As an artist, how does it affect what are the strategies you're using when you're getting from the Western view of whether it be racist remarks or things that they think may be funny, but it definitely hits you straight in the heart. And then the crabs in the bucket situation that's happening over here. What are the strategies you are using for that? Because that I would understand that would be affecting
I think
your mental health.
it's a great question, and we all probably have very different and similar experiences. But for me, racist mob, it's like water off a duck's back. It doesn't hurt. It's if it comes from in-house laterally. That's where it really stings, because that's where your heart lies. So I think for a lot of us, the online banter and all that, it can wear you down. But like Sister was saying, we've got very strong networks that we can pull on to just keep lifting each other up. And also, there's a lot of us that have got a voice that are using it to call it out. Like I see Sis here all the time, just getting it done online, and it takes a lot of courage to do that. It does. But it's also acknowledging the blessings too, and not getting camped in all the oppression. Because for me, you might as well say I'm white, but inside I'm a full blood, and that doesn't fit with the Western world. But it wasn't that long ago that in my mother's generation, she was born as flora and fauna.
Yep.
So there's a lot of blessings here that I walk under. I've got this microphone. We can have this open conversation. I can go and sing my music, even if we stripped it down to the fact that it's just red, black, and yellow stages or whatever, which for me it's not. I'm very blessed. But we've got a chance to pick up a microphone and share our story. We're just in a position now where we're on a mission, all of us, to elevate the culture of our people and the value of our people within every industry and walk of life. Like for me, even to be, let's just say, a 99.9% language singing artist signed to one of the biggest labels in the world, that's a massive feat. Not for me, but for everyone that come before me. To those that were stolen, that couldn't sing language, that couldn't dance, couldn't get up there with a headdress and stomp on TV. You know what I mean? That would get flogged for that. So for me to call them back and be like, I've got the next single out, what do you think? Already, that's like a massive feat. And sometimes we have to, for our own mental health, is pull ourselves out of the battle and go, whoa, we're doing all right. We're moving forward. The stats are terrible. We're overrepresented in incarceration, chronic illness, suicide, domestic violence. It goes on. It's like some of the most harshest stats in the world. But within that, the resilience of our ancestors and people and like-minded brothers and sisters, we are pushing forward. Yeah. And we won't stop. And I'm blessed that a massive label like Sony took a chance because they know it's a risk. Because what I do, it's a battle to get that on mainstream radio. It's a fight. Yeah. But for me, when I get off a call with Fen and she's like, Mitch, I just want you to know I love this song and I'm going to keep fighting for you. We're going to do this. That's a win. She's not a black fella. She probably knows nothing, but what she knows is he's on a mission. She knows stuff about music, about our culture. But she's on a mission to walk with me to get it done. And that's what it's going to take. You mob there to grab our hand and go, oi, no one's listening, but I got your back, and we're going to do this shit. You know what I mean?
Fucking shout it.
Yeah,
let us
shout
know
it.
You've got our back.
Let us know.
Let us know.
Because I get off the phone to Leah and I'm like, I'm pumped, they seem pretty excited, but oi, Fen said she's not going to stop till we do this, so let's get it. And that's all you need sometimes, But it's a hard walk. It's a really hard walk, and sometimes it's a lonely one, and it's diverse. Like, it's hard, to step out front, to be light-skinned, to feel like a full blood, to carry them ancestors with you, and to have the whole world look at you and go, you're just a white sellout. Look at you. This fella ain't... Come on, who is he? But it's like, they don't know the pain that I carry from those ancestors that were raped, that were bashed, that were stolen. They don't know that I carry that. They have this very baseline education. And that's what we're about here at Support Act, is building empathy and capacity. So when Dobby comes or Sis and she's like, I'm really struggling, you've got this capacity and empathy to go, here, you're not alone, and we're doing this together. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Don't worry about them fellas, Mitch, calling you this and that. Oi, remember what we're about? Yeah. Remember what we're going to achieve together? And we can only do that hand in hand. Because like Sister said, we're like 3% of the population. In the music industry, we're like who knows what. And then we're also some of the most incarcerated people on the planet, full of hospitals with chronic illnesses. So seriously, there might be 1.5% of us on the street. Let's be real. And that's where we're at,
Can I just suggest a book for you guys? I'm currently reading Another Day in the Colony by Chelsea Wadigo. That is definitely an interesting read because she talks about what people perceive as an Aboriginal person and what an Aboriginal person actually is. And she gets to the core of the issue. Like in history books, you see us in history books, but you see us told from a white lens. And that's not what Aboriginal people are. So that's definitely a book I recommend
Yeah, awesome.
everyone
And
read it.
oh, go, brother.
Oh no, I was, yeah, we were talking about that last night. This book, it sounds amazing, and I want to add that because it just reminded me a quote that Brad Stedman, a Nambar man in Wurramara, he always says to me. He goes, "Brother, you're not a man doing Aboriginal things. You're an Aboriginal man doing things."
Yeah.
And it's so simple, but it's so powerful. And I was like, "Yeah, you're right. Thank you."
Yeah, I love
That's
that.
it.
And I mean, in closing, because we're nearly finished, I suppose, what we need you to do, if you're not already, is to just flip your whole perspective on how you value our culture. Because even growing up, there was a real mentality when I was, in Lap Lap painted up that, we're all drinkers, so we'll just give these mob $150 to jump around like a kangaroo, and they'll probably go buy a carton and they'll be happy. And what we need you to do is flip that thinking into, wow, we live in a country with the oldest living continual culture on the planet. Can we even put a value on that?
Yeah.
Because this fella here, he's not jumping around and pretending to be a kangaroo. He's actually sharing with us one of the oldest songs on the planet. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's pretty special.
Very special.
Can
This fella here talking about this emu is talking about how it connects up into the Milky Way and is now sharing with us a story that transcends back to the time of creation. That's pretty valuable. And now these artists are coming and bringing those stories in a contemporary format. Oh my God, how forward thinking, resilient and powerful is that? Now we've got people creating music that is absolute world-class quality but bringing in the most oldest living culture. Oh my God, how can that not be on mainstream anything? Like, what? This is epic. So it's all about flipping the mindset and the things that have been passed down from generation to generation to then view how you value us too and our culture. You know what I'm saying?
This is great.
This is great.
Yes.
Thanks, Dobby.
Can I just say, for those looking to include us, which should be everyone, this is not a risk, it's an opportunity. Because how lucky are we that we're in a country, right, that is home to the oldest, like you're saying, the oldest continuous culture in the world. Wurramara being home to the oldest human-made construction in the world. The Nunu, Bayami's Nunu, creator spirits, fish traps, estimated to be 40,000 years old, right in our backyard. How lucky are we? So this is something that we no one else has this, but we have this. We should all feel very special.
I think, yeah, definitely. I'm sorry, I'm getting emotional because this is so beautiful. I wish I had this when I was 14. But I think, as First Nations artists, as musicians, we create so much healing. We create so much healing in this space. And, from my experience, but I've had people come up to me and say to me that my songs have literally saved their life. Yep. And I think that is it's such an honor to be able to create music and knowing that our young ones and our young fellas are watching us and they're watching us shine, and we're holding that space for them to shine as well, because they're allowed to and we should be allowed to as well.
Yeah, well said, sister. Thank you everyone for attending. I just want to thank Support Act for just getting right around this and making mental health important, not only for everyone, but making it very specific with getting Cerisa on board for us as First Nations people. And you're right, brother, it is head first, but we are spirit first people. Yeah. But in order to ensure the safety of our spirit, we need to ensure the wellness of our mental as well. And, so I hope that you've taken something away from it. But we don't want you to go away feeling heavy, like, whoa, these mob just come, just put all their punk, see ya. We want you to go away like, okay, this is real, it's happening, they shared it, but really what they're asking for is us to just go and engage with community, learn a little bit, put a hand out so we can walk together. Because you know what, as much as we're impacted, we don't want the next gen to be impacted. Like, I remember being a young fella and every gig I'd be like, put them in the disabled toilet, just get dressed in the toilet. You've been in like a man's toilet, fellas are going in and out, going to the toilet, and you're just young, getting painted up. That's where you just get put. But you start to value us. It's like, okay, we've got these fellas coming in, let's get a green room. We know they've got ochre, let's put plastic towel down, let's make sure they're okay. And all of a sudden, you start to put value on us, and we start to walk differently, and you become a part of change. Because our young people from a young age, they're already told, you're probably not going to live long. You're probably going to end up in jail. your mother or father's probably going to be on dialysis in the next few years. We're already told these things. So for you to come in the arts industry, whatever area you're in, and put value on us, that already is a part of change. Because then we start to feel different. Oh, okay, it's a bit different than usual. And that flows on to our kids and our family. And together, we start just upping that amazing pile of value. And you get to be a part of that if you're willing and able. And that's all we want today, is for you to go away with our story, but go away feeling empowered to walk with us and be a part of change.
Can I just add one more thing? So it's super important for us to value our First Nations artists, because they're the base of encouraging our next generation. So many people see their songs, so many people see their music. They're the people that are going to teach us to be empowered, and we need to be empowering them to be able to do this and hold this, weight on their shoulders. So.
Thanks, Cerisa. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thank you.
Again, massive shout out
Thank
to
you.
Support Act. And seriously, everyone, you really need to give it up for Cerisa, because she works so hard. She works really hard, as do all the mob at Support Act.